Can you hear me in the back row? Yep.
Yes.
Great. So we're going to start in a couple of minutes. If any of you on the back row would like to be in the front row, this would be a great time to do that. I don't know how well you can hear. If you're good, stay where you are. And if you'd like to snuggle up a little bit closer, we'll be all right. So I asked the governor if we could wait just a couple of minutes because I think folks are still coming in. So 2 or 3 minutes, we'll get started if that's okay.
Excuse me, I'm going around here.
Absolutely. Certainly. You get it? Can everybody over here see past me okay when I'm standing there? Okay, just want to make sure. Thanks. Whoop, I'm sorry. Go right ahead. No, I'm going to go stand at the camera so you can go ahead on. Very hot. Yeah, that would be good. We're streaming live. There we go. That works. Just waiting for the start of the event.
So I think it's time to begin. This is going to be a glorious day. Today we have the opportunity to heal a wound that's laid open for 175 years. My name is Peter Driscoll. I work at AMHI in Portland, and I'll be moderating today's event. But given the nature of this occasion, it seems appropriate to begin with a blessing. I'd like to call upon Chaplain James Weathersby from Riverview Recovery Center to offer us to lead us in the blessing. Reverend Weathersby.
They always offer the microphone to the Baptist minister. I invite your attention to be still for a moment and listen. We are gathered here today to recognize and honor the lives of those patients, men and women, both young and old, who died while in the care of or on leave from the Augusta Mental Health Institute. These persons are those men and women, 11,647 in number to date, who suffered, adjusted, and thrived through their struggles with persistent mental illness. These men and women with persistent mental illness were cared for, they were treated humanely, and they were even loved by the community and the staff at AMHI, they affectionately called it, from 1840 until June of 2005, and even to this day. We here today offer our sincerest and most intentional efforts to mark these lives with this memorial here in this cemetery, here in Augusta. They are gone but not forgotten. This day belongs to those men and women, the 11,647 men and women, many of whom achieved peace only in their final resting place, here and across the state of Maine. We dedicate this sacred place and hallow this ground to their keeping, pledging ourselves to the profession of humane treatment for the least to the greatest of the state of Maine. These departed patients leave a legacy of compassion, care, and commitment for everyone with mental illness. May we stand for a moment. In the sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life through your divine love, we commend to Almighty God, the divine, these men and women, 11,647 in number, our brothers and our sisters, sons and daughters of the state of Maine, and we commit their remains to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The Lord bless them and keep them. The Lord make his divine face to shine upon them and be gracious unto them. The Lord lift up the divine countenance upon them and give them final eternal peace, now and forever. Amen.
So, how did we get to this place? Why is it that we're here in this spot at this time? I want to give you a little bit of history of the cemetery project, how it came to be, and what steps we've gone through. In 2000, Karen Evans here returned from a national conference where she had learned about efforts led by consumers in other states to locate and restore cemeteries and state mental hospitals. We gathered a small group of us, and we wrote to the commissioner to ask this simple question: where are the patients buried who died at AMHI? Such a simple question. But once you ask it, you really want to get an answer to that question. She responded a few weeks later, and her answer was, it wasn't that many, and most were returned home. We were skeptical. We began a research effort that examined old chaplains' reports, superintendents' reports, and the best source of all, funeral home records. And it was really clear from that early research that the number of deceased patients was probably much higher than any of us had believed. Finally, we entered into a formal agreement with the department, which provided us access to patient records, which are protected by law. We hired a fabulous researcher, Laura Wilder, you'll hear from her in a moment, who spent the better part of the year examining all of the patient records from 1840 to the present. Early records, of course, were handwritten ledgers that required close examination before Laura might come across an entry that suggested that the patient had passed in the night. It was only through this careful examination of all patient records that Laura was able to create the most complete list possible of patients who died either while a patient or while on leave from the hospital. The list contained 11,647 names. We were never able to locate any comprehensive burial records. Because this information was protected by confidentiality laws, we then petitioned the legislature to allow for the information to be made public, and they agreed. The complete list is now available on the State of Maine website, and a hard copy, here with us today, is placed in the lobby of Riverview. In 2005, we held a memorial service that coincided with the final closing of AMHI. We had a patient go up and close the door, AMHI, for the last time. We recruited volunteer readers and committed to reading every name. We began reading at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we read the last name at 5:30 at night. The committee felt that our work was not done until a permanent memorial could be created to honor these individuals, and we raised funds to make that happen. We chose this site for the memorial because all maps indicate that this portion of the county cemetery behind me was dedicated to AMHI patients, mostly in unmarked graves. And if you haven't been up to see the stone, I encourage you to do that. So it's on this section of the county cemetery closest to us. Our first speaker is the woman who gave birth to this effort. Karen Evans has been an advocate for change to the mental health system for her entire life. She came to Maine from California, transported in a military plane in a straitjacket. She was placed in AMHI for more than a year, and she witnessed a patient attempt to take her life by sticking her head through a glass window. Karen knows about the importance of treating folks with dignity and respect. She knows the importance of understanding the impact of trauma, and she's a fabulous example of the evidence and the hope of recovery. Karen Evans.
Hi, my name is Karen Evans. I speak to you today as someone who has spent time at AMHI, Augusta Mental Health Institute, as a person who has seen some terrible events occur inside the hospital, and a person who has seen another patient take her own life in the hospital. In 2000, I returned from a national conference where I learned of efforts in other states to locate and restore cemeteries at state mental institutes. My passion was fired up, and I knew that this work was needed here in Maine. Thus, the work began. In my life, I've endured much shame and demonstration and discrimination because of my mental health issues. I believe that we failed to keep death and burial records at AMHI patients because we viewed them somehow as less than the rest of ourselves. I am also a person who believes in recovery. I do not see myself as a consumer, but as a neighbor and a friend, and as a person living a full and rich life. I am so proud to be here today and to be part of this event to honor those who died at this hospital and were forgotten. The monument reads, "May we serve as a reminder that their lives had value and that they were deserving of dignity both in life and in death." I believe that every member of our community deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Today we are here to honor the memories of more than 11,600 patients, individuals who died while patients at the Augusta Mental Health Institute, better known as AMHI. The AMHI Project, Driscoll, thank you for all your hard work, and all those involved have worked very diligently in identifying patients who died while under protection. Okay. Some patients were buried unmarked. Augusta will help honor memorials for the homeless, some of which families believe around the world. Some of the graves are currently unknown, not able to be located. It is fitting to accord official recognition to honor the memory of each individual and to serve as a reminder that each of their lives matters. They deserve the dignity and respect. City of Augusta, employees at State of Maine, and State of Maine. The harsh way these people are treated. I share my disappointment with families due to the state's neglect. And on behalf of the people of the State of Maine, I apologize to the families for the disservice that we gave their loved ones. Again, I want to acknowledge the great work that's been going on. Thank you for your kind words. On behalf of the people of Royale, today marks the dedication of a permanent memorial of all those patients who lost their lives under the care of the state. You know, we often hear Black Lives Matter, these lives matter, kids and children, all. Whether you're elderly, disabled, mentally ill, it makes no difference whether you're white, black, all lives matter. Great respect that I signed this proclamation because it's high time we acknowledge our mistakes and do the right thing. Thank you. Signed it, and now let me read it. Whereas the Maine Cemetery Project is a statewide initiative to honor the memories of more than 11,647 individuals who died while patients at the Augusta Mental Health Institution, AMHI, one of the two state hospitals in Maine. And whereas some patients were buried in unmarked paupers' graves throughout Augusta and without proper memorial ceremony, some allowed family or loved ones to acknowledge their passing. And whereas some of the graves are unnamed and are not able to be located. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to honor the memory of each individual and to serve as a reminder that each of their lives have value and deserve both dignity and respect. And whereas September 18, 2015 marks the dedication of the permanent memorial in Tony Cemetery to honor those who have passed while in the care of the Augusta Mental Health Institute. Now therefore, I, Paul Page, Governor of the State of Maine, do hereby proclaim today, September 18, 2015, AMHI Memorial throughout the state of Maine and urge all citizens to recognize this observance.
Our next speaker has been a passionate advocate for individuals with disabilities for much of her adult life through her work at the Disability Rights Center. Helen has served as the lead attorney representing patients in a class action lawsuit that resulted in the AMHI consent decree, which spurred reform of Maine's mental health system, vastly improving conditions within the hospital as well as within the community. Helen Bailey.
Individuals who are subject to those treatments, funding variables, and politics. And though we speak at times of the mentally ill as though they were some cohesive group, we are really speaking of our neighbors, our friends, our acquaintances, our family members, and indeed ourselves. To me, that is the one truth that should guide us in all our treatment, all our funding, and all our political decisions respecting mental health. And as we come here today to dedicate this memorial, let us remember that it is a memorial to 11,647 individuals. We know that in life they shared at least one experience, to be hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital and to die while yet on the rolls of that hospital. But they shared in that experience, as in life, as individuals, each with a distinctive personality, distinct talents, separate senses of humor, differing appearances, and differing hopes and aspirations. And though time, yes, that's a microphone. And though time has erased the distinct memories of most, let us remember today that they had breath, they laughed, they cried, they ached for things in life. And as this memorial shall remind us, they were and are deserving of dignity. Thank you.
And our next speaker has been the Commissioner of the Department of Health and Human Services under the LePage administration for the entire LePage administration, Mary Baker.
Good afternoon and welcome. What a great opportunity to be here and to be here in celebration. And before I begin my remarks, I do want to take a moment to thank Peter and to thank Karen and everyone else involved. And Karen, you said you went to that conference and you came back with passion. I don't think I've ever talked with you when you weren't dripping with passion of what you wanted to accomplish from the first time I ever met you. So this is a testament not only to your passion, but to your determination and your perseverance. So congratulations to you and to everyone involved. Today, as all have said, we gather to honor those who have passed away while in state psychiatric care at the Augusta Mental Health Institute. This memorial commemorates the lives of 11,647 people, and often it's helpful to put that into perspective. And to put that number into perspective, this total represents a population roughly the size of Orono or Falmouth. These individuals' lives were spent in state care from the moment they were diagnosed with serious and persistent mental illness. A century ago, it was thought that a person with mental illness should be institutionalized. And I'm reminded that in so many of the discussions that we continue to have, policy and budget, we are constantly ever mindful of slipping back to any similar types of attitudes that lend themselves to institutionalization and the importance of being ever thoughtful about how well we learn from our history and continue to push forward on those reforms. Regrettably, it is a sentiment that still has not been entirely eradicated today, and we must continue to focus on hope and recovery. Psychiatric medication, treatment practices, and social acceptance have dramatically changed over the last century, and as Helen said, some come, some go, and some return. Yet many still fail to understand that people with mental illness can thrive with access to appropriate supports and acceptance across our communities and our society. Not far from here is the Capitol Clubhouse. And when I first came into office, I had the opportunity to meet with individuals at that program who talked about the dramatic change in their lives as a result of that program, going from isolation, social isolation, frequent visits to the emergency department, being in jail, to living a life that was happy and fulfilled and productive and engaged in their community. We know these programs matter and can make a difference. We must continue to do all that we can to obliterate the stigma while focusing on what individuals and communities can contribute to the recovery process. The reality is that recovery is possible, and we see evidence of this each and every day. We all have the ability to offer support and inspiration to people in recovery. And you also may find, as I've had the privilege and the pleasure, I meet monthly with Karen and Simone and others as part of the Consumers Council, and the inspiration is constantly there, and I've had the privilege of hearing from individuals throughout the state, and it is through that inspiration that we have to, as a state and in state government, persevere and look for the opportunities to advance the care, the services, and the supports that matter. The respect and support from family, loved ones, and community members, along with policies and effective services, will pave a more stable path for those who are struggling. I suspect that those who we recognize today would want all of us to take a moment to look back and reflect. But at the same time, they would charge us with continuing our commitment to make things better for those who struggle with mental illness, to acknowledge that the system that isn't a system is still failing people. Everyone here today likely knows someone with a mental illness. In fact, half of the people in the world experience some level of a mental illness challenge over the course of their lifetime. The good news is that recovery today is more common than not. We must continue to remain focused on doing all that we can to foster communities that no longer buy into the stigma of mental illness and believe that that communities play an important role in the recovery process. It is my hope that this memorial will serve as a powerful reminder of where we have been, and that it reinforces the progress we've made and the progress we can continue to make in the future. Thank you very much.
Speaker is Laura Wilder. Laura Wilder, local from Hallowell. She was the lead researcher on this project and spent the better part of a year reading all of the patient records, and she gave detailed and meticulous notes. Through it was her work that created the master list of names. When we interviewed Laura for the job, we were impressed that she was an attorney. We now know she has a master's in divinity. But we were more impressed that she identified as a consumer, because it felt like we were going to have a peer with us, the treatment team was going to look out for this hole in the ground that she would be researching. Laura Wilder.
Thank you, Peter. It's a privilege to be here today. This is a privilege to be hired to coordinate the cemetery project. Well, started about 12 years ago. I think I started working on it. Looking back over the last 10 years and reflecting on what happened, I can tell you that it was a bittersweet experience to do that work. It was sweet because I was working with the nicest people who were so supportive of me as I was struggling with my own illness and trying to do this work. I would not have been able to complete it without their support. I never worked with a more committed group of people who refused to give up no matter what. And here we are, 10 years after the ceremony across the street to dedicate the memorial. Thank you to everyone who refused to quit. It was sweet because I love history and I love research, and I had never had the opportunity to do original historical research before, and it was fascinating. And I love puzzles and problem solving. And so I was tasked with a big puzzle, helping people figure out who died at AMHI and how many folks died and where they were buried. And a big problem, how are we going to get access to the records to get that information? As with any bittersweet experience, there's also the bitter. One of the things that I did as part of my research was that I read over 100 years of superintendent reports issued by the superintendent at AMHI, and I also read all the chaplain reports beginning in, I think, the late 1840s. AMHI began with such hope. The people who advocated for it and built it and funded it were dedicated to building a safe, beautiful, secure place where people could go, recover, and go home. It began with such hope. Over time, that hope was lost, I believe. And part of that is that we forgot that 11,647 people died at AMHI. We forgot where those people were buried. And honest to God, we have lost the cemetery across the street. I am absolutely convinced that there is a large cemetery across the street where most of the AMHI patients died who were not put into other burial places. There's too many references to it in the old superintendent reports. There's too many references to the cemetery across the street in the chaplaincy reports. And there's too much memory from people we interviewed who lived at AMHI for many years who remember hearing about it consistently, that there is a cemetery across the street. In one of the early chaplain reports and superintendent reports, there was a request to the legislature to fund money to build stone tombstones, but that money was never forthcoming. So it was easy to lose that cemetery. In the early 1900s, the superintendent of AMHI in 1912 refused to bury any more people in that cemetery because it was too full. The last known burial was in 1912. By the early 20th century, even the knowledge of the cemetery there had fallen out of AMHI's and the state of Maine's institutional memory. That's an experience that so many places around the country have, so many consumers have. It's a bitter experience. Another part of my research was to read through the 40 volumes of patient journals, 22,000 pages. There was a lot of skimming, or I would still be across the street reading, looking for what happened to people who died there. I didn't take notes on people's personal stories. That isn't what I was there to do. But I can tell you, in the months that I spent in the archive, looking through page after page, the overwhelming impression that I have is that what people wanted who were living in AMHI was to get better and go home. Nothing has changed. What people want is to be able to be home, in their own homes and in their own communities. We keep making the mistake of thinking that segregating people and, putting them in groups will help, but the experience of AMHI tells us that that isn't the case. People there wanted to go home, even in those early years. And finally, there's the sheer number of people who died. By the time I got involved, we had a list of 2,000 or 3,000 people. only tell you that there was continual shock and dismay and sadness on the part of all of us working on this, as we were able to get access to the records that we needed to, and that number month by month by month just grew and grew and grew. For many months, I was the keeper of the list, because I was the only one in the research protocol in the law who could look at that list. And that was a burden. It was hard to compose sometimes, and add another 300 or 400 or 500 names into the computer that I had gotten from card files or from records that day. It was a very good day when we could finally make the Book of Remembrance available to all of the people of the state of Maine, and remember not only the number of people who died, but the names of people who died. I didn't cry through this whole process until the day that we read the names. I read them twice across the street, and listening to those 11,647 names and reading them. On that day I wept, which was the appropriate response, I think. So now we have a Book of Remembrance, and we have a beautiful, beautiful memorial. And so those folks are not forgotten. They are no longer out of our institutional memory. They have been welcomed back in with this proclamation, Reverend, with your beautiful opening. They have been returned to us. And so there's also hope here today. AMHI began in hope. We can do something better than more AMHIs. We need to look at the consumer movement and their allies to keep them in recovery. We need to be committed to returning people or keeping people in the communities where they live, because those are where the folks who love them and care for them and will not let them be lost or forgotten are. And that's a hopeful thing, that we are slowly moving in that direction. It's also really hopeful that a little group, and I can't tell you, I worked in big advocacy systems for many years. This was a small, dedicated group who continually found allies and resources and refused to quit. A little group reclaimed the story of these folks and have encouraged us all to remember them. And that's a hopeful thing. So to forget the histories of the dead is to at least partly erase the stories of the living. Let this memorial and this book be not only testimony to what happened at AMHI, but a continual call to us to be persistent, to always do our best, and to continually be finding new ways to support folks with mental illness, so that in the next century, we will not be dedicating another memorial, we'll be celebrating the lives of people as they lived and are in their communities. Thank you.
Superintendent of Riverview, not AMHI, Riverview. Raises up and down, too. Under his leadership, we've gone from the Riverview Psychiatric Center to the Riverview Recovery Center. And I will tell you on a personal note, he snuck away from his wife's sickbed to be with us here today, Jay Harper.
So I'll skip the part that starts out, I'm sorry I can't be here with you. I'd like to say a few words on this occasion concerning my thoughts about the lessons that we're required to attend to as we dedicate this memorial. Over the years, more than 11,000 souls have been interred after passing from Augusta Mental Health at this institution that has served Mainers with psychiatric challenges. We have before us a single monument and a book. It's placed in the lobby of Riverview that stands in for those who have passed. The fact that we do not know all the names of the people who have passed with psychiatric illnesses, nor can we identify the locations of the remains of all these individuals, begs the question and defines a lesson that we must face. Why do those faced with psychiatric challenges and left for treatment and care by the state end up anonymous or lost? I believe that these souls ask us to speak with them, that we should recognize that psychiatric challenges should be publicly discussed and named, not by using diagnostic labels to replace the name of the human being cared for, but rather in the honest reflection. There's little difference between a patient and a non-patient, and we will all be patients sooner or later. Currently, we protect the privacy, confidentiality, and even the reality of those who face these challenges. In the process, we unintentionally, or maybe it is intentionally, hide ourselves in this issue. I believe that these souls ask us to not be anonymous, to not be lost, but to be brought into the family of humanity by being named, by having their stories told, by publicly addressing these concerns, and by recognizing that these challenges are part of who we are. We suffer from stigma, anonymity, and anonymity simply because we are considered different. The truth is we are not. We should dedicate this monument and ourselves to bringing the challenges and need for compassionate treatment out into the open and into a public discourse today and every single day. Thank you.
And our next speaker is the Executive Director of the statewide Consumer Council System of Maine. Created by the legislature, the Consumer Council is charged with the responsibility for seeing to it that consumer voice is represented in all major policy initiatives within the department. And as Laura told us, if we had consumer voice from the start, by God, we'd have a better mental health system today. Simone Mallett.
It's breathtaking to look out at all of you sitting here today. In 2005, when we read the names, that was one of my first experiences in really understanding the magnitude of the consumer movement. And I was there from 8 o'clock. Back then I was working with Peter and Amistad, and I was there from well before 8 o'clock. And we were there on a cold, rainy day, and we read every name, and the impact of that day has led me to where I'm working now, and the work I do now. I never want to forget those 11,647 people, and they drive me, like Karen, with a passion to make sure our systems and our state never forgets them, ever again. I wanted to read a quote, and it is, "Your value does not decrease based on someone else's inability to see your worth." There's two parts of my life that have coincided with the cemetery project, and one of that is my work in the consumer world and with my fellow peers, and my husband and I have had a lifelong passion for collecting antiques and selling antiques. I have right here something I bought in an antique store in Arundel many years ago, and it's the 1901 Superintendent's Report. There were 4 there that day, and I bought the best looking one, and I couldn't afford all 4 of them. I wish I could have gone back and gotten them, but I do have this one from 1901. And I spent a lot of time reading this book over the years. But I went back to it last night and this morning because I wanted to take a point in time study of what was happening then, because as many have said, I never, ever want to be here in a place again where we have forgotten people, my fellow peers, and that they have lost dignity and respect, and we have not moved forward in recovery. If that happens, we've lost. I want to say, in 1901, patients were not called patients, they were called inmates. In the superintendent's report, there was little discussion of patients, except for the reason for admission, a little about recreation, and some information about discharge. As of November 30th of 1900, there were 771 inmates. 434 men and 337 women. The most popular treatment in 1901 was a machine called the Morton-Wilmhurst influence machine, which produced static electricity. And they believed that patients thought it was incredibly beneficial. In my mind, I likened it to electric shock therapy. I want to tell you, back then they didn't have HIPAA, and there was one patient identified and discussed in 1901. And that man was Jacob Dearborn Marr, who was committed by the court to determine his level of sanity. He had been homicidal and he murdered his 3 children. And upon coming into the hospital, he suffered from debilitating melancholia, which was the old name for depression. He barricaded himself in his room and he used his sheets and he hung himself when he died. He was one of 102 people that died that year in 1901. One of the other staggering things when I looked back at 1901 was that there was meticulous records kept about the building, the property, and the garden, the hogs, the potatoes. And I gotta tell you, in the sewing room, there were 320 aprons made. We counted aprons. There was 534 of them that were repaired in that sewing room. In 1901, they bought 94,048 pounds of potatoes for a cost of $1,235.02. And they purchased 45,785 gallons of milk. Milk was more expensive than potatoes, $8,310.28. There was one note of compassion that I did write down because it touched me, was that in the recreation report they talked about the level of care that the superintendent had for the patients. He knew every patient's name. He treated them with respect and dignity and cared for each one of them, and they all knew him. Did you know you could be admitted for sunstroke, or rheumatism, epilepsy, or financial trouble? How many of us would be in the hospital for financial trouble? And the 2 biggest causes of death that were reported was, the first was terminal dementia, and the other is mania. I'm still trying to figure out how you die from mania, but that's what they're listing. And people came to AMHI with careers. There were very few people that didn't work before they came to AMHI. People worked as artists, basket makers, blacksmiths, laborers, carpenters, druggists, and farmers, and many more. The other thing is, because of my passion of antiques and consumer movement, I have been working little by little to collect artifacts about the Maine Insane Asylum, the Maine State Hospital, the Maine Insane Hospital. There's a variety of names that the hospital has had over the years. And I have to tell you that AMHI was a tourist destination from the 1800s into the early 1900s. They kept perfect manicured lawns, beautiful floral gardens, all tended to by patients. And people took carriage rides and came in, and there's postcards, many postcards of the souvenirs of Augusta that show tours and people touring AMHI. Like, people with mental health challenges were something to go look at. I never, ever want to forget those things. And it is my passion to move forward in the future to make sure we're never a tourist attraction, that we are a place of recovery, hope, dignity, and respect. I'm going to leave you with this quote again. Your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth.
The City of Augusta has been very supportive of this effort. They've given us permission to place placed a monument in their cemetery, and they promised to maintain it going forward. We have a proclamation from the City of Augusta, Councilor Pat Parry.
Yes, I guess this is a little bit better. It's never easy to speak as like almost the last person to speak after you've heard some very eloquent comments. And a lot of them have been very eloquent this afternoon, especially the last speaker. We were given a book of postcards of the City of Augusta that was done by Leo, this summer. And that was one of the postcards, Augusta can sing the song. I've been a resident boy of Augusta for 62 years, so I grew up here before there was deinstitutionalization. I remember the farms, I remember the patients working on crops and the dairy farm and the cows and things. As you go by here on your way to Chelsea, so a lot of memories just got bubbling on. But just before I read the proclamation, I just want to make an observation and share with you a story. Today, everything seems so impersonal. My sister and her husband visited Washington recently, and they went to the Holocaust Museum. And when you go there, she said, you pick the name of the person, and you walk through the Holocaust Museum to live the journey that person went through, being arrested at their home, and then by train, and then into the concentration camp, and finally death, so that it personalizes it. And that's what you have done by recovering all of these names. Each of them was a person. Each of them had a family. And more importantly, each of them had feelings. They were real people like you and I are. And in 1980, when I was a legislator, I went to the funeral of a family friend whose son had jumped off the Memorial Bridge. In the 1970s, late 60s, 70s, after deinstitutionalization, we were losing 3 patients of AMHI every year because they went to the bridge and they jumped off because they lost all hope. And I was a new legislator, and a little bell went off in my brain and said, these awards of the state, I'll use the words of the governor, they were here under the protection of AMHI. And I, as a legislator, felt that they were under our protection and we were not protecting them. So I asked the legislature to put up a safety fence on the Memorial Bridge, and they gave me $1 penny, nothing to do it. The Commissioner of Transportation, George Campbell, his everlasting credit, said there's money in the DOT, 1% every year that comes in from federal funds for safety. We're going to use those monies to put up a safety fence. That safety fence went up in 1982, and there hasn't been one death on that bridge since 1982. In 2005, the state removed the fence to recondition, remodel the Memorial Bridge that needed it. And they asked the City Council in Augusta, which I was not a member at that time, do you want to put back on? And there was all kinds of hullabaloo in town. There was a debate. I want to recognize my friend here, former State Representative Julie O'Brien from Augusta. She and I, and countless others, formed a committee. And we lobbied the City Council to keep the fence on there, put it back on there. The vote of the council was 5 for it and 3 against it. 2 of those members were up for re-election that August. Both in August. 2 went for re-election and both lost. People out there care. Sometimes it's difficult for them to go to public officials and say, we have a family member, or we suffer from mental illness. You say you have cancer, people have pity on you. They feel for you. You say you have mental illness, they're afraid of you. I hope I live to see the day when we consider mental illness like diabetes or heart trouble or high blood pressure or anything like that. Thank you for bearing with me. And we got that fence back up there, and it looks as beautiful as ever, and it's been very productive. And I thought when the election returns came in and said, you didn't have the courage to vote for your heart, for your soul, the voters made a decision for you. So there you go. Mayor Rollins is out of town, he's out of state, he's attending a family wedding with his wife tomorrow. It's in New York State, so he's asked me. We have two councilors here with me, joining me, Councilor Cecil Munson and Councilor Hannah Blodgett right here too. I thank them for being here. Whereas the cemetery project is a national movement to locate, restore, and memorialize abandoned and neglected graves at state mental hospitals. And whereas the main cemetery project is a statewide initiative to honor the memories of more than 11,647 individuals who died while patients at the Augusta Mental Health Institution, one of the two state hospitals in Maine, between 1840 and 2004. And whereas some patients were interred without family or loved ones present to acknowledge their passing without a proper committal ceremony, and many were buried in unmarked paupers' graves throughout the city of Augusta. And whereas some of the graves are unknown and are not able to be located. And whereas on September 18, 2015 marks the dedication of a permanent memorial in the Coney Cemetery to honor those who have passed while in the care of the state of Maine. Now therefore be it resolved that I, David M. Rollins, Mayor of the City of Augusta, do hereby proclaim today, Friday, September 18, 2015, as Augusta Mental Health Institute Memorial Dedication Day. To honor and remember individuals who have died while patients at the Institute. May this memorial help to foster compassion for those living with a mental health diagnosis and help to eradicate the stigma. May we remember that every human life has value and all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Thank you.
So I have the chance to leave you with some final thoughts. Who were these 11,647 patients? The answer is simple. They were our neighbors, our friends, our family. They were our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers. In short, they are us. This project has been about restoring dignity and respect to these forgotten individuals. But even more, this monument should serve as a very visible reminder, as the governor has said, that all lives have value, that all lives are deserving of dignity in life and in death. This concludes our formal remarks. I have some people I need to thank who have been helpful in the life of this project. Karen Evans, for her visionary work that began the project. Every time we lost a little steam, Karen would say to me, "Time to do something about the cemetery project, Peter." I don't think this project could have succeeded without the fabulous, detailed, and meticulous work done by Laura Wilder. The state of Maine has been our partner in this effort. They provided support for today's event, stood with us when we tried to amend state laws, and have supported the project every step of the way. Thank you to the state of Maine. The legislature of the state has amended state confidentiality laws to allow for the publication of the patient names, and they've also committed to the eventual renovation of the stone building. And when that's accomplished, there will be a permanent memorial built into the lobby of the stone building to memorialize these 11,647 patients. Thank you for the legislature. For the first couple of years of research, when they had no money and not much access to anything, I had access to students who were looking for a research project. I said, have I got a Lollapalooza research project for you? So for 2 years, we had teams of students from the University of New England conducting research at the Maine State Archives, and we're thankful for their support. Many folks have contributed financially to this project. I have to tell you, every time there is an article in the paper about the cemetery project, two things happen. I get emails from people asking me if I can help them locate their loved one, and people send me money. So I can't tell you how many checks I got for 50 bucks, 25 bucks. People asked to put it towards the cemetery budget. Particularly generous has been the Elsie Biles Foundation, who provided significant funding for the memorial stone. And Bruce Collette. Bruce, are you here? He's not here. Bruce, he is here. His email address is Monument Man. Bruce Collette from Collette Memorials in Lewiston, Maine has designed the memorial stone for us, and he's been incredibly kind and patient as the committee has tried to design the memorial. So, Bruce Collette, thank you so much. To pull this event off today. We've had a lot of organizations and individuals who come together to work and plan on this event. So my thanks to NAMI, Disability Rights Center, Consumer Council System in Maine, EHHS, and the folks at Armstrong. So thank you so much for all of this. So if you've not had a moment to walk up and view the stone, I invite you to do that. It's behind me on the path created by the City of Augusta. We have some food that's at the back of the tent. The books of remembrance, which are the detailed records of AMHI patients, are here if you'd like to look at that. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
I'll take a walk up to the memorial so that anybody viewing live or later on can get a picture of what the memorial looks like. Bear with me as I walk through. This video is made for those who cannot get up to the memorial.
Hey,
Hi.
I've seen you a long time.
Yeah. How you doing? This is the beautiful spot where your memorial is. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. In the front, you'll see an eternal flame. This concludes our broadcast, and thank you for joining.